A Zen monastery was having a fundraiser. They had a lot of the supporters in this room, all nicely dressed and so on, and they were waiting for the Zen master to come down to speak. And the leaders didn't know exactly when he was going to come down or what he was going to say. Well, he comes down in his Zen robes and so on, and he starts to speak, and he says to everyone, "Do you realize you're all going to die?" The leaders in the monastery were kind of looking at each other. They were a little uncomfortable that was his topic for this fundraiser, which was really needed for the monastery at the time. But he didn't care. He was there to teach the truth. He was there to talk to them about the most important thing that they could learn. And some people hearing that might think, well, death, that's not a very positive topic. You know, let's be positive. But let me tell you, death is a positive topic, especially when you understand what death can teach us. Can you imagine what this Zen master, he was trying to communicate to these people that life is temporal. Things are always changing, and eventually you're going to die. And when you really get that in mind, then you can start appreciating your life. You can start putting things in perspective. Because a lot of people, they don't want to acknowledge death. And we live in a culture that we like to close our eyes to all that. We get real uncomfortable around people who are dying or going to places where people are who seem to be close to death. Very uncomfortable. And people are afraid of death. And so today, we're talking about death, how death is the great teacher. Why is death a great teacher? Well, we said that, didn't we? Death is a great teacher because it can teach us to appreciate life. And we got to feel comfortable talking about death. Great saints and sages have all talked about death. They have no discomfort talking about death. St. Paul in the scriptures says, "I die daily." And he talks about overcoming the last enemy, death, and death has lost its sting. A lot of yogis and Buddhists go to cemeteries as one of their practices, and they contemplate death. They think about the fact that one day they're going to lose their skin and all this, and they're just going to be skeleton and, you know, all that exciting stuff to think about. Because it puts life in perspective. Death is a great teacher because, just imagine this. If you knew that you had 1 week to live, or 1 day to live, I mean, let's even put it there. If you said, this was the last day of my life, if an angel appeared to you and said, when you go to bed tonight, you're not going to wake up in the morning. You're going with me to another dimension. How do you think you would live that day? I bet you would live that day. It would be a very meaningful day. Now, that's because you're watching us right now. I'm sure a lot of people would probably freak out. Oh no, I can't die today. This can't be my last day. I'm not done yet. I'm not ready to go. Guess what? We don't have that choice. We don't have that choice. We don't decide when it's our time to go. People of all ages go without warning. That's how death works. Babies die. Teenagers die, young adults die, middle-aged people die, older people die, at all times. Wise people know that death is inevitable. We're all going to die. And secondly, it's unpredictable. It's unpredictable. Nobody knows when their last breath is. They breathe out, and the next thing you know, the breath doesn't come in, and they have left the planet. They're gone. Nobody knows. And guess what? You're watching a spiritual broadcast right now, right? This service. People have died watching a spiritual service. In fact, people have died doing just about everything there is to do. I think Bing Crosby died on a golf course. That's not a bad way to go, I think. People have died watching television. They've died in meditation. They've died praying. They've died eating a meal. They've died in having sex. They've died in all kinds of ways. I like how the guy dies in The Godfather, right? The Godfather's in the garden playing with his child, and he falls over amidst the tomatoes or whatever that is, and he's gone. We never know. We never know. And the value of death is recognizing that death makes us appreciate life right now. And as I said, if today was the last day of your life, how would you look at your partner, your spouse, your friends, your children? How would you look at your experience in the now? It would probably change how you communicate with the people who are dearest to you. Would that grudge matter on the last day of your life? Would that thing that normally irritates you or annoys you matter on the last day of your life? I doubt it. I doubt it. Imagine how you would listen to people if you knew this is the last person you may ever talk to on the planet. It didn't matter what they were saying. You would be, wow, you would be fully engaged. You would be listening. You'd be like, wow, I'm experiencing another person. I'm hearing stuff, and this is great. This is great. Everything would be so much magnetized for you. Death gives life meaning. Why? Because when you look at the fact that we're going to die physically. Now, I'm not talking about eternal life today. I did talk about it in meditation a little bit. I have spoken about it. We know about, people who have died and had near-death experiences. They die and then they come back and talk about being able to see their body during surgery. And, there's actually research that has studied people, and I think it's 40%, a study done in England, 40% of the people who had cardiac arrest and had died remembered what happened after they were dead. So we're not getting into that right now. We're not getting into the fact, well, what about Jesus resurrecting and Easter and all that? It points that we're eternal. That's true. But I sometimes wonder if we think I'm eternal, then I can just take all the time I want, I'll get around to it. But when you're leaving the planet one day and you don't know when you're going to leave the planet, that death is always watching, then you really start to appreciate your present moments. Now, you might be like me, because I remember thinking, but, what about what you focus upon you get? If I think about death, doesn't that mean I might attract it sooner than I want it? I don't think you need to worry about that. Why? Because the thought of death that could come any moment, and let's face it, wise people think about death a lot. They think about it because it gives meaning to life. Scarcity, it's called scarcity. When something's scarce, you appreciate it more. A rock that's scarce becomes a gem. Life that's scarce becomes very valuable. We appreciate it. And I think if we think, oh, I'm eternal and life is you may not appreciate what's happening right now. That's why death can be our greatest teacher. That's why it can be our friend. There's a Zen saying about live today as if it's your last, and also as if you have 100 years to live. Now that's interesting. See, because you might think, well, if today's my last, I'll just eat everything I want to eat. Ice cream, cupcakes, what pizza, whatever I want. No, 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 no. Because if you're also living 100 years, then you also want to think, well, no, I want to be healthy so I can dance at my grandchildren's wedding. Or I want to be strong and healthy so I can do the things I like to do. I like to go hiking, I like to go bike riding, or whatever it is that you like to do. No, that's the value in that. And it might go, what do you mean, 100 years, living 100 years, but today's my last day? What do you mean? Don't try to figure it out so much. Just recognize, yeah, we do the things that we need to do as if we're going to live 100 years, but also recognize any moment can be my last moment. That's not negative. That's realistic. That's realistic. Think about it. The Buddha died of food poisoning. Did you know that? He didn't know that that meal was going to be his last meal, probably. Yeah. The great sage Ramakrishna had stomach cancer. I don't care how spiritual you are. You never know when the last moment's going to be. I knew a young Unity minister in his 30s, maybe 40s, who liked a bicycle ride. He was out riding one day, hit a mirror on a car in a parking area. That was it. And he was a wonderful guy. He was a loved guy, very wonderful, talented person. That's not terrible. It was time for his soul, I suppose, I assume, I have faith that his soul was time to go. He did what he needed to do, and he left. And none of us knows when that time's going to be. That's not negative. See, as I was saying, thinking about death in this way doesn't mean you're going to attract it. Doesn't mean you're going to attract it. Because the point is to get us into the phase of appreciating the now, living in the now, appreciating this moment. See, that's where the majority of your attention is going to be. It's in this now moment, appreciating life, appreciating the experience. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of us don't do that. I'm guilty, 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 guilty. A lot of us don't. Why? Because we don't like what's happening right now. You know, this is not, it's raining outside, or, oh, it's humid outside, or we're not doing the job we want to do, or we're not achieved the dream we haven't achieved yet. We haven't met the partner we want yet. We're living in our mind. We're living mind. We're not living life. You know, it's always something we want. We want something else before our life begins. You know, if that could happen, then I'd be happy now. See, that's not life. That's a thought. I'm not saying don't have dreams. I'm not saying don't have goals. But don't count on living life when those things happen. Life is now. And we don't know what tomorrow will bring. We really don't. Enjoy the journey along the way. That's what we're talking about. Enjoy the journey. As I believe it's the Beatles song or a Beatles quote, life is what's happening to you while you're busy making other plans. See, if we're busy making other plans, we're not experiencing and appreciating life right now. As Michael Singer has a great example, he says, if a person in a hospital was told she has a week to live, and she says, well, can I have another chance to go outside and just experience the outdoors? And of course, the doctor says, sure. Well, what if it's raining? She's going to go out in the rain. She's going to go, oh, rain. I love the rain. And it's going to get her wet, and it's going to be cold, and it's going to drop on her. And she's going to be so grateful because in a week, she will not experience rain again. But the rest of us, we're like, oh, it's raining. I don't have my umbrella. Oh, I'm getting wet. Oh, it's so nasty out today. Blah, 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 blah. I've been guilty of that. And then what? You never know what when's your last moment? We think, well, yeah, but she's got a week to live. None of us knows how long we have to live. None of us. People die all the time. Accidents, walk. I'm not saying dwell on this stuff, but it's true. It's true. You don't know. None of us knows. I've been a minister, 28 years? I have met a lot of spiritual people, beautiful people, who went away. I knew one guy, he went away on vacation to Ireland, his homeland, to visit, and he never came back. You know, he died over there during his vacation. I've known angel people, angel pens, giving away angel pens, giving away angel books. Hey, when it was their time to go, the angels weren't going to stop them. I'm telling you. What's the point? This is not a negative message. This is a positive message. The positive message is death is our friend. Death tells us your life is precious. Your life is sacred. Live it. Live it. We don't live it because we want something else to be instead of what we're doing. A lot of people go outside. They don't see anything around them. They don't experience the trees, the flowers, the people. They're in their heads or wherever. They're not here in the now, where life is. Life is happening here. Now, something that I'm learning more and more as well is that when we're in the now and we're not in our heads, we experience life to a greater depth. A greater depth. God is in the now. Yogananda said, when you have happiness in the now, you have God. See, God is the now. God is the now. Life is now. And when our thoughts are in the past or in the future, they're not in the now, and we limit our experience of God in the present. That's what we're saying. We're not fulfilled because we're so busy thinking about what we want, what we don't like. I don't like this, I don't want that. Instead of really being here now to experience what's happening now. The Buddha had something great to say about that. He said, do not pursue the past. Do not lose yourself in the future. Look deeply at life as it is in this very moment for stability and freedom. That's what the wise ones are telling us. That when you can live now and appreciate life and experience life now. Yeah, okay, you wish it were something else. I'm not saying don't try to create something else. But remember, life is now. Let's enjoy and appreciate now. There was a great yogi who lived as if he had a sword dangling from a spider web over his head. He lived constantly with that awareness so that any moment could be his last. What did that do for him? It made him conscious of appreciating life. You know, we hear about gratitude journals and we hear about the importance of gratitude. This is gratitude. Appreciating life. What if we could appreciate every moment of our life? He points out that wise people aren't afraid of death. See, people are afraid of death because they feel like death's going to take something from them. Oh, but I haven't done what I wanted to do. Oh, but I didn't do blah, 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 or I didn't have this experience yet. No, don't come. And death comes to the door and they say, wait a minute, I'm not ready. Death rarely gives any warnings, folks. I mean, Myrtle Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, she had a sense she was going to die. She handed out roses to her secretaries and told them all thank you, and then she died not long afterwards. She said, I have work to do on the other side. Jesus the Christ predicted that destroy this temple and in 3 days I'll resurrect it. He knew that he was going to die, but most of us don't. Let's face it, we don't know. So let's live life as if it's our last. Think about if you knew you had 1 week to live, what would you do differently? If you had 1 week to live, what would you do in that week? How would you live? See, that can shift all our priorities around. You know, a lot of people are throwing their life away. They act like they have forever. They have forever. They're putting up, one day I'm going to go on that sailing trip. One day I'm going to write that book. One day I'm going to do whatever it is. Guess what? That day may never come unless you do it now. Do it now. When you look at if you have 1 week to live, then it can cause us to think, well, then how am I living my life? Am I putting off stuff? Or am I doing it? Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was really famous for studying death and dying and helping people die, and she said the people who scream the loudest and cry the loudest on their deathbeds are not the ones who have made mistakes. They're not the ones who have big mistakes that they've made. They're the ones who have regrets about what they wish they had done, the life they wish they had lived. Death is a teacher. It teaches us to appreciate the moment. Death teaches us to value life now, not to take it for granted and not to throw it away. If you knew that you were going to die in a week, you would probably take the actions that you need to take. You need to say the things that you need to say. Don't put off telling somebody you love them. Don't take it for granted that they know you love them. Let them know. Let them know. Tell them. I remember starting this, becoming aware of this whole idea in college as a freshman and starting to think, yeah, my grandparents are getting older. And, let me start visiting them because they're not going to be around forever. And I think it's harder for younger people to really recognize this because it's so easy to think, I've got forever. I've got forever. And they've never maybe even experienced death. I know it really became clear for me after my parents died. Because when you spend your life with somebody and now all of a sudden they're gone, it becomes very real. That mom who is so vibrant and talkative and joyful, or whatever your mom was like, or your dad, or whoever it is that was special to you, and now they're not around at all, and you're like, wow, they're gone. I mean, if you're spiritual, you can sort of tune in and still feel full with their presence, but it really points out you're not on the planet forever, and I'm not either. And we don't know when our last moment's going to be. And I'm sort of giving you permission from a unity minister perspective, or at least from how I see it, to not think this is negative, but to feel comfortable about death. And to even use it as a spiritual tool to help you embrace the now moment, to help you really live fully. Jesus said, I have come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about tuning in to where life is. Life is only now. It's not in your head. Sure, if you having a goal or a dream helps you to be enthusiastic now and appreciate now, wonderful. But if all we're doing is living for the future and thinking about the future, and we're taking people for granted and we're taking the moments for granted, we're missing something. We're missing something. And we're missing the depth of living. The sages tell us when you are here and now, you start to live at a greater depth, a greater fullness. Wise people don't care about death. You know why? Because they're full in the moment. They don't have the feeling of, oh, but I haven't done this yet, or I haven't had that experience yet. No, their every moment is full. And when death comes, they're fine because they're full. They're whole in the moment. That's what the sages tell us. So that's what I'm saying. Let's have more and more of these moments where we are present and we're grateful. And if you imagine that a saber's hanging over your head, you can be like, any moment could be my last. Now you could say, oh, but that's unlikely. The odds are against that from happening. Justin, most people live to be 76 or whatever it is, and usually there's warning, they get old and all that. There's a lot of people on the planet, ladies and gentlemen. and they all go at different times. And I'm saying that let's give this a shot. Practice knowing if this were the last day of my life, or if this were the last week of my life, and keeping that consciousness regularly. The Dalai Lama does it. Then how would I live? How would I be in this moment? Oh, it's raining outside. Wow, it's raining outside. I'm going to bring my umbrella, but hey, this is cool. Stuff, water falling from the sky. You know, whatever it is. Oh, it's too hot, it's humid. Hey, I am lucky to be on this planet experiencing what we call humidity, heat, or whatever it is. That's what I'm talking about. Life is happening now. And when we tune into it, we go into a greater depth of experience. And it's Memorial Day weekend, a time where we acknowledge the people who died in service to their countries. And I believe that's important, and I just want to bless those souls and bless the families who had a loved one die in service to their country. It saddens me that people die in wars. I think wars are hell on earth, and they're unnecessary. But as humanity is at this level of consciousness, they have been necessary up to this point. I'm not saying I believe in wars, but I am saying the people who have died in service to their country, they were doing what they believed in. They were protecting their loved ones, they were protecting their comrades, they were protecting their country, they were protecting values, and they died doing that. And I think that is honorable, and their soul in some way was doing what it needed to do. And they grew from that experience. Through faith, I believe that. That they grew by committing themselves, putting themselves in the line of danger to protect the values they believed in. So we bless those of you who have loved ones who have died in service to their country. And we bless those souls as they continue on in their eternal journey. Death is not a negative thing. It's a teacher. It teaches us to appreciate being here, having this experience in life. Doesn't mean that it ends when we die. No, I'm not saying that. That's another message. But it means let's appreciate life as it's happening right now. Let's get still. And we thank you, Father, Mother God, for your wisdom, for your guidance, for this life. Thank you for the gift of life. And thank you for helping us to appreciate it more. And we appreciate the great teacher, death, that is also part of this experience. We thank you for that teacher that helps us really appreciate what you have given us, life. Thank you for helping us to live it fully. And so it is. Amen. We thank you for joining us today. And would you please join me now for the prayer for protection? The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us wherever we are. God is, and all is well. Even if it's our last moment, all is well. Thanks for joining us today for the Unity Center live stream service. I'm Justin Epstein, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Remember, live this moment fully. God bless you.